Hello and welcome to Darkside Scenics. After completing some scenic work in episodes 1 and 2, I needed to create a joining board to transition into the Staverton section. These joining boards will be made in the same way as the baseboards in episode 1, but they'll be half the size. My hope is that these boards will give me enough space to bring the terrain and the track in line with the next board. The plywood is drilled, countersunk and then screwed onto a frame. This centre support gave me some issues later on when drilling holes, so I'll have to reconsider how I do it. Next, I needed to create some baseboard legs to start lining up the boards. This is CLS timber from B&Q, which is relatively cheap at just over £3 for a 2.4 metre length. Because I'll be moving and changing the boards quite a lot in a limited space, I wanted to make the legs freestanding. I'm just using some scrap pieces of timber underneath here to drill the pilot holes. And I'm always checking everything is square when screwing it together. Once I've made a few of these, it should make life much easier when moving the boards around. As you can see here, the joint for the board sits on the same set of legs. To help keep the baseboards level on uneven floor, I've got these adjustable feet. Out of the packet, they just need screwing together. Fortunately, there's a torque screw on the bottom which speeds up the process. They have 4 screw holes which can be marked out on the legs before drilling. When the legs are in place and the layout is on the top, the feet can just be adjusted with a spanner. Staverton station is only a 10-minute drive from where I live, so I've made several visits recently to take some photos and video. It was nice to see the 5526 on the line, as it's the model I bought recently to run on the layout. The station is a really nice place to visit, so I'd recommend it if you're in the area. Scale Scenes do a downloadable version of Staverton Station. It's reasonably priced and they give a donation to Staverton Preservation Group. Once downloaded, you need access to a colour printer and also some 2mm, 1mm and 200g card. And you'll also need the usual glues and kit making tools. I'm not very good at following instructions, but this kit is really well thought out. The first part is to stick some of the pieces to the relevant size card. When that's fixed and dry, it can be cut out with a sharp knife. I really enjoyed making this kit, but I did wonder if I should make the effort to scratch build it using brick sheets. There's something really nice about the texture of the brick sheets when compared to paper, especially when you're close to the model. As a quick distraction, I picked out the brick sheets and attempted to make a copy of one of the end walls. The paper version is here on the left and the brick version on the right. I've given the brick version a quick weathering, and I'd be interested to know in the comments section if you think it's worth pursuing. Anyway, back to gluing the card kit together. Lego bricks are really useful here to keep the kit square. The main building is left to dry while I cut out the roof section. There are two of these buildings at the station, but they are slightly different. The kit comes with all the pieces to make both. The roof sections are made up by cutting out strips of tiles and then overlapping them on the card. The kit includes a large number of signs, so it's just a case of cutting them out and sticking them onto the building. I haven't done any weathering on this model yet, but I'll revisit it at a later date when I know which direction I'm going to go. The buffet coach at Staverton isn't available as a double low gauge model, so I picked up a Lima coach from eBay with a view to adapting and spraying it. While I was taking the model to bits, I had a quick look at the Staverton Buffet Coach Facebook page. There are lots of photos on there, so it gave me a rough idea of what I needed to do. I'd like to recreate the interior and add some lighting, so I'll give that some consideration over the next few weeks. The first board at Dartington was fairly straightforward, with just a single piece of track and only two holes for dropper wires. This one will be very different. This board will have 2 points and therefore 2-point motors, a level crossing, a signal and some platform lighting, so I'll need good access from underneath. As explained earlier in the series, I'm using a grid method to try and plot out each section. To cut the track, I'm using these track cutters from DCC Concepts. This is Pico bullhead track, and I also picked up 2 medium radius turnouts for this section. The front part of this section needs to slope downward slightly, and there's also a leat beside the track. Therefore, I need to cut the board, raise the rear where the track runs, and then add some Celotex at the front. This plywood is the new base layer, and this part will be raised by 70mm to line up with the other boards. In the base layer, I'm just drilling some corner holes for the jigsaw, and then I can move on to create the access panel. This will give me plenty of space to access things like the point motors in the raised section. Using the plywood as a template, I can cut out the Celotex for the front section. Wood glue is spread onto the base layer before adding the Celotex. Unfortunately, the Celotex is slightly shorter than the plywood, so I'll have to use some offcuts at the end. It's weighted down, clamped and left for 24 hours to dry. To add some more strength, I'm spreading some wood glue on the frame before screwing the base layer in place. As with the last board, I'm using 70mm timber to raise the trackboard to the required height. These pieces of timber are screwed to the baseboard before the top layer of plywood is added. Now it's time to plot out the road, the path and the leat. I'm happy with the position of everything, so I can start cutting into the Celotex insulation board. It's quite a messy job, and I'd always recommend wearing a mask when you're cutting the insulation board. I've finished creating the shape of the land, so I can cut some MDF to protect the edges. This step is repeated for the back and the sides, taking extra care on the sides to ensure they're square. So I had to create the Dartington and the Staverton boards before I could work on the joining board in between. The terrain at Dartington is obviously much higher than Staverton, so I'm just cutting a piece of MDF for one side of the joining board. The same is done at the Staverton side with this offcut of MDF. I had to temporarily move everything into the kitchen to give me the space to put each board together. The next part is to create a raised section at the back for the tracks to run on, and also a lower section at the front where the river can curve off. The idea here is for the track to snake through some trees, which will help with the transition between the boards. Next, I can mark out where to cut the plywood for the river to run. The plywood is attached to the timber from the top initially, and then I'll attach it from underneath in a moment. Some MDF is marked out at the back to give me an idea of where the terrain will go. And the same at the front, where the river comes in from the right and the path from Staverton comes in from the left. Using the top part as a guide, I can mark it out in pencil and then drill through so it can be attached from underneath. Some more wood glue is added before wedging in some Celotex. And this part in the top section will help to bring Dartington down to Staverton. After leaving it to dry for 24 hours, I can start to carve the insulation board to the desired shape. And here are two of the three boards in their basic form. Before I can consider laying any track, I need to install some alignment dowels. The baseboard frames are 18mm timber and 6mm MDF. I glued together some offcuts so I could have a practice run. So these two pieces represent the edge of each baseboard. Once the positions are marked out, they need to be clamped or screwed together. Then drill through both boards with a 3mm drill bit. I had this 19mm drill bit, but it wasn't really suitable. It was very aggressive and I couldn't really control the depth. Before I drilled the actual baseboards, I picked up the Bosch version on the right here, which was far more suitable. Using the dowel edges as a guide, drill into the wood until it sits flush. Then, with a 13mm drill bit, drill from the other side of the wood straight through. Unfortunately, this makes a bit of a mess of the MDF, so it's a fairly poor choice of mine. However, it still worked and the dowels were a nice snug fit. To help them fully into place, I just used some clamps with a piece of wood to avoid damaging them. The other ones seem to press in quite easily. This is also where you would add some glue. When the legs were made, enough space was left for the protruding dowel. Now onto the real thing. First of all, just clamp them together. I had already marked the position of the dowels, so just needed to drill through both boards. Then the 19mm drill and ensure the dowel is flush. I should have drilled through from the other side with this 13mm bit, but I was trying to avoid making a mess of the MDF. This can cause issues with accuracy as you're following the larger drill bit. This means that the 13mm drill bit might not remain central. However, I was quite lucky and happy with the join. While I was doing this, I took the opportunity to drill some larger holes for the bus wires. Now the alignment is sorted, I needed some toggle latches to secure them. These latches are adjustable, so if like me you don't have the best woodworking skills, they can be quite forgiving. I know many people prefer to have bolts hidden under the baseboard, but for speed and convenience this is the best option for me for now. Once the front was installed, I installed another at the rear of the baseboard. Moving on to terrain building, I picked up some wooden Scenics moulder scene from South Devon Railway. I usually use sculptor mould, but recently it seems to have doubled in price and is also unavailable for several weeks. This is a slightly grittier texture than sculptor mould, but it still does the same job, and at the end as it dries you can still smooth it off with some water. After it's been down for a few minutes you can start to spray it and create a smoother texture. When the riverbed and the riverbank are finished, I can leave it for 24 hours to dry. So I have lots of work to do over the coming weeks and months. I need to pour some resin here, work on some scenics, add some trees on this section, lay track across the boards before I move on to Staverton, which is going to be over here. So this is the Staverton board, and we've got absolutely loads to do on this one. There's point motors over here, a level crossing, a signal, a platform, trees at the back, terrain building, elite, just absolutely loads to do. So I'll keep you updated in the next video, but until then, thanks for watching.